G. Bush, I made this topic specifically for you.
Let's go.
This is the G. Bush specialty. I'm going to give you a player on the Browns, and you tell me what their stats would be like if Kyle Shanahan was calling plays for the Browns. Same offensive talent, exact same situation, 4 games in Cleveland. The only difference is now Kyle Shanahan is calling the plays. So through 4 games this year, Steve, I need the season stats. Give me 39 here, not 38. Elijah Moore has, in 4 games, 17 receptions, 148 yards, and no touchdowns. What does Elijah Moore's stats look like if Kyle Shanahan was calling plays for Elijah Moore?
Man, I think he at least has maybe 24 receptions, 205 receiving yards, but he does have 2 touchdowns because he's creative in the red zone.
All right, that's reasonable.
That is
I was not
reasonable.
expecting reasonable there.
You know, I have a question for you, Mike. What are his rushing stats?
He has on the season.
He's got to be minus yardage.
No, he had a couple positive runs.
Well, didn't he have a minus 31-yard run?
He has 3 yards on 7 carries. 3 yards on 7
Jason's right.
carries.
He has 3 yards on 7 carries. And his long run is 19 yards.
And the problem is the stuff they want to do with him. They have the ultimate upgrade in Deebo Samuel. Elijah Moore on end rounds. Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, Deebo Samuel is he's the boutique store version of Elijah. I mean, 3 rushes, 3 yards on 7.
3 yards on 7 carries.
That whenever you can measure your average in inches, it's a horrible thing. But that's where we are.
Elijah Moore is one of them dudes that you pick up a toy for your kid real quick at Big Lots. You don't know why the hell you in Big Lots. You just pick it up and be like, yeah. But it don't come with a remote or batteries.
It's got a missing ear.
All right, G. Next up, let's put DPJ.
No one wants a Charlie in the box. It's the island of misfit toys.
Let's put DPJ through the Kyle Shanahan converter. Through 4 games with the Browns, DPJ has 6 catches, 75 yards, no touchdowns. What would DPJ stats look like in a Kyle Shanahan offense?
I think he may have 14 receptions for maybe 150. He'll have 1 touchdown in the red zone. The problem with him is they also have another upgrade from him in Brandon Ayuk. So he's the same cat, but much more faster and talented. So, yeah, I don't see much of a difference here with DPJ. But I do think he would have better stats.
Well, twice the production.
Yeah.
You said he'd have twice the catches and twice
Twice
the
of
yardage.
nothing is still nothing.
That's still very minimal. Very minimal.
We
right?
learned early that 2 times 0 is still 0.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
See, look, I'm being reasonable. The Kool-Aid is just...
Gee, I made this for you to get drunk on Kool-Aid, not for you to be low slipping and slow sipping.
Well, I think what he's saying is it's not all Stefanski. It's also that these guys are who they told us they are.
Jags,
when someone tells you who they are, listen to them.
That's right.
I don't see it.
We got 2 more before we get to the next one. Speaking of Jag, Steve Smith on NFL
Oh,
Network.
my God.
If you didn't know what a Jag was before Steve Smith yesterday, you sure
that
you
was
know what do
the
now.
single best commentator to player diss I've ever seen.
All of a sudden, the last 2 weeks has been. Yeah, Dante Whitner kill.
Yes, that's right. I
somebody
forgot. This was better.
Rodney
But
Harrison.
Steve's always been feisty.
Yeah, he
always
has
been feisty. But this was over the top.
What did he say? I don't even know.
So he said that before the game.
Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, Jeudy he had been critical of Jeudy, and he called him a jag on his podcast.
Yeah.
And Jeudy saw him and came up to him, and he said, he didn't say ninja. He used the other word, and he said, I don't want anything to do with you.
I don't
mess with you.
Steve tried apologizing to him.
Yeah.
And Judy said, get out of my face.
Well, he said, Jeudy, come here. And he said, I was going to apologize for calling him a jag.
Yeah.
And when he came over, he said, Ninja, I don't mess with you.
Yeah.
And then he repeated it. And so then Steve said, oh, okay, that's fine. I was going to apologize for calling you just a guy who's been a classic underperformer your whole career. But now, forget it. I'm not going to apologize for that.
Yeah.
I'm going to basically say that if you want to be traded, and any general managers call me and ask me if they should trade for you, I'm going to tell them, don't do it. Because he's a classic overachiever and he's never going to be anything. That's a paraphrase.
So he was crushing.
Wow.
So his apology was not going to be legit
I did not like what Steve did.
It was harsh and over the top.
I've had
I liked it as a sports fan. But as a member of the media, I didn't love it.
You're in a different role now, man.
Yeah.
I've had players cuss me out plenty of times over things that I've
said.
You don't take that back to the public.
Like, you know what?
It's
That's
only a couple things that you get
like
mad about when somebody says when the Karate Ninja came out. That might have been fighting words in the street. If there was
because it wasn't used as a term of endearment.
Listen, the ninja that was fighting words. If he would have called him a FN. Those was fighting words.
Yeah.
Like it's certain things that you just don't do.
And Draymond, who are great friends now, he said he called me a B, and I couldn't.
He called him a BAN.
He did. Which, by the way, is probably worse than the FN.
Yeah, we're gonna move on. Let's keep it
We're trying to dangerous territory. By the way, listen, we got TV today. We can't say nothing.
Now, for Steve, though, I will say this. I think he grew up in Compton, didn't he?
Somewhere
Steve
where they
Smith,
fight for a living.
Hard guy. And he never hesitated to not drop gloves, but to throw hands with a linebacker.
Now,
he didn't care.
Are they going to tell him behind the scenes? I don't know. I ain't met it to that level yet. Behind the scenes, are they going to pull him aside and say, hey, Steve?
It's the second time I've seen him do something like that. In fact, when he finished, he kind of dropped the mic and said, that's it, back to the studio.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think the NFL Network's a little different in that they're state-run media, and they may actually say something like, bro, you can't go at guys like that.
Gee, we got two more of these real quick before we bring in Tim Couch. What about David Njoku? He has 16 catches, 138 yards, averaging 8.6 yards per reception this season. What does his stats look like? No touchdowns, by the way, but what does his stats look like if Kyle Shanahan was calling plays for the Browns?
36 receptions.
Oh my God!
There we go. Yes, sir, G.
So George Kittle probably doesn't even have 36.
Big Nuggets just came to life.
That is kind of high. How many is that? 36 divided by 4?
That's 8. That's 9 catches a game.
That's like probably 12 targets. That was a little high. Let's go with 27. I'll go with 27. But I do think that he'll have about 250 yards. But here's where 250. Here's why I think he has a big splash. I think he has 4 touchdowns in the red zone. 4 already. They average 30.
I think you're out of pocket right now.
They average 30 points. George Kittle just had 3 last week.
Yeah, but he's got better talent there.
3 last week. He said if he was on the squad.
But George Kittle hadn't done anything the first 4 weeks of the season.
They moving now.
And he said if he was here with the same guys here. First of all, again, week 1 against Cincinnati, the weather was terrible. I don't know that even with to me, the only game you could argue that would have been a lot better with Shanahan in theory to me is the Pittsburgh game, because they played great against Tennessee. The Cincinnati game was wacky with the weather, and last week he had to start DTR. Kyle Shanahan's a good coach. Let's not get crazy. He's never won a Super Bowl, okay?
And to your point,
let's not get nuts.
And you also make a great point in that they all serve as relief valves for one another. When you have one great player in the offense, which right now Amari Cooper is the guy.
Yeah.
So what do you think San Francisco's doing right now?
I mean, David Njoku's blocking a lot. I saw him open on a lot of release valve routes. And he had the best game of his career. Not career, but the best game of the season with DTR. He had 6 catches.
That's true. We did. But McCaffrey draws so much attention from opposing defenses that Samuel and Ayuk and Kittle are all beneficiaries of that.
That's right.
And our guy that would do that, not even to the extent of McCaffrey, is out for the season.
Right. And their quarterback's getting rid of the ball quickly.
Yes. And ours is not.
Last one before we bring in Tim Couch. How about Jerome Ford? He has 50 carries, 186 yards, 3 total touchdowns on the season. What do those numbers look like if Kyle Shanahan is dialing up plays for Jerome Ford?
The 3 touchdowns is actually kind of high for him right now. His carries would be maybe 60. I'll give him 200 yards. He's not going to be doing too much. I mean, if they still have Christian McCaffrey, they always sprinkle him in a little bit more. So
that's even worse average if he has 60 carries and 200 yards.
Yeah,
that's even worse than
about
he's
60
doing here.
carries, 200 yards. And I'll give him about maybe 4 touchdowns. He ain't going to be doing too much.
See, the question is McCaffrey in that offense too?
No, he's calling plays for the Browns.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, if that's the case, he becomes our Christian McCaffrey.
Yes.
Except he's not.
Christian. So really, I think my takeaway from that is they've got.
I'm the Matthew McConaughey, but I'm not Matthew McConaughey.
No, so what they have is all of the A-list guys, and our guys are kind of like borderline D-list, C-list guys that are trying to play the roles of the A-list guys.
You know